Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you could all bear with me for a moment, it appears as if we are having a sound issue. I want to quickly try to correct that. I believe you can hear me, but unfortunately, the main mic is out. I would like to take a moment to try to fix that if I can. Oh, I think it's fixed. Well, there you go. What do you know? Every now and then the luck does indeed roll our way. Today is Monday, January 23rd, and this is the rundown. Thank you for joining us. Brandon Say is being hailed as a hero after he jumped a gunman as he entered the, I'm going to get this one wrong, 𝗲𝗲 Ballroom in 𝗢𝗲𝐵𝐺, California. The gunman had already shot and killed 10 people and wounded 10 others when he opened fire inside a dance studio in Monterey Park earlier that day. Say was hosting a dance party to celebrate the Chinese New Year when he saw the gunman enter the lobby. He said it was clear that the man wasn't there for money or to rob the place. He said that he was looking for targets for, quote, people to harm. Say lunged at him, grabbed the weapon. They struggled. Say was struck repeatedly about the body and across the head, but he did manage to get the firearm. He aimed the weapon at the shooter and demanded that he leave, and said that the gunman appeared to hesitate and think about it, trying to ascertain whether or not he might be able to get the gun back. Instead, the man finally turned and walked back to his van. Say called the police. That gunman was later found in his van having died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The shooting is among the deadliest in California's history. Today is, as I said earlier, January 23rd, the 23rd day of the year. There have been 36 mass shootings so far. I apologize if it looks like it is a little choppy. Let me see if I can try to improve that. Hopefully you guys can hear all right. So let me know how it's going in the live chat there, but hopefully everything is improved somewhat. And let us continue. Germany, which had previously been hesitant to offer or to transfer the Leopard tanks to Ukraine, they have a licensing agreement which says that no tanks can be transferred anywhere, no matter who owns them, without Germany's permission. Germany has now said that they will not deny Poland permission to transfer the tanks if they ask. The Kremlin has replied saying that, quote, all countries which directly or indirectly take part in the pumping of Ukraine. That's a direct quote. With weapons and raising their technological level are all responsible for it. Russia has downgraded diplomatic relations with Estonia and expelled the Estonian ambassador. Estonia has retaliated by expelling the Russian ambassador, and Latvia has, in kind, expelled the Russian ambassador. Both countries are downgrading their diplomatic ties to Russia and have been joined by Lithuania in their calls for Germany to indeed send tanks to Ukraine. South Africa, meanwhile, has come under fire not only for meeting with Russia to discuss the Ukraine situation, but also for proposed military drills between South Africa, Russia, and China. Huge protests continue in Israel, with an estimated 100,000 people taking to the streets of Tel Aviv over the weekend. Benjamin Netanyahu returned to office last month, and has once again helmed now what is the country's most right-wing government in history. After court deemed that one of his cabinet picks was illegal, he decided to go after the court, attempting to restrict its ability to overturn laws and government decisions. In a country with no formal constitution, the Supreme Court plays a vital role in keeping the government ministers in check. This move was seen by many as an attempt to install himself as supreme leader and to evade corruption charges for which he is now on trial. In Peru, 6 regions have declared a state of emergency and as many as 50 people have been killed in anti-government protests, which continue to expand mostly across the southern area of the country. The protests started when President Pedro Castillo tried to survive an impeachment vote by attempting to dissolve the legislature. That failed. He was impeached and removed from office in the country's capital, Lima. Dozens were injured when police clashed with protesters. Cars were set on fire, and security forces used tear gas to disperse the protesters. Thousands of people took to the streets of Brussels yesterday, protesting Iran's detention of 𝗢𝗫𝗆 𝗏, who has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for spying. Belgium denies these charges, claiming that they are a fabrication and retribution for Belgium's imprisonment of an Iranian diplomat who was convicted of planning a bombing attack against an exiled opposition group. Protesters in Atlanta, Georgia, protesting the death of 𝗦𝗸𝘆𝗽𝗲, have done damage to the area, and the protests have led to multiple arrests over the weekend. 6 people were arrested and charged with felony charges, including criminal damage, arson, and, I shit you not, domestic terrorism. Taryn was shot and killed on Wednesday while camping/occupying the site of Pop City, a planned $200 million police training facility. He was protesting in an effort to, or he was camping there, occupying in an effort to protest both the scope of the project and its environmental impact, since it would carve out they'd have to carve out a huge area of wooded region, destroying that area. Law enforcement claims that not only did he refuse lawful orders to vacate the premises, but he shot first, injuring a police officer. His family says he is a pacifist, or he was a pacifist, and he was unarmed. Police have since, in fact, produced a photo of the gun that they say that they claimed from Tehran, and also a bill of sale for that gun to Tehran in 2020. One officer was indeed shot on that day on that premises with a gun of the same caliber. He was admitted to the hospital and underwent surgery for his wounds. 7 people were charged on that day with criminal trespass and, once again, domestic terrorism for occupying that area. Multiple buildings have been damaged, and at least 1 police cruiser has been set on fire. The Justice Department has conducted a new search into the Delaware home of President Joe Biden and found 6 more items, at least some of which contained classified documents. These documents and, quote, surrounding materials date as far back as Biden's Senate term from 1973 to, that's a year before I was born. Okay. 1973 to 2009, while other documents are from his tenure as VP in 2009 through 2017. The search was coordinated ahead of time with Biden's consent. Both his personal lawyer and White House attorneys were present during the search. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has already named a special prosecutor, Robert Hur, to look into the matter to determine if Biden has broken any laws. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers are preparing to try to head off a crisis with this nation's debt ceiling. The Treasury Department has begun what they are referring to as, quote, extraordinary measures in an attempt to keep paying the government's bills, and they believe that they can do so up until about early June, at which point the nation is going to default. House Republicans are using that deadline as a hostage to try to force spending cuts, while Democrats argue that these are bills that are already incurred and must be paid regardless of any other... must be paid regardless of the Republicans' desire to see significant cuts in spending in exchange for paying them. The bipartisan group is proposing replacing the debt ceiling with, which is currently a fixed dollar amount, with a new debt ceiling which is based on a percentage of the U.S. GDP, with forced spending cuts if Washington exceeds that limit. This would allow the debt ceiling to automatically expand as GDP rises and would eliminate the need for these regular yearly votes to raise the ceiling. Currently, the U.S. debt is equivalent to about 125% of U.S. GDP. And meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, has said that one of her top priorities is rebuilding the Internal Revenue Service. Your guess is as good as mine as to what that means. She has requested more funding to help enforcement measures, and Congress has approved $80 billion in new funding for the agency, which she says will help the IRS track as much as $600 billion in unpaid taxes. The IRS has an interesting and unique history there. It is one of the only organizations in the U.S. that is, of course, responsible for net revenue as opposed to net cost, and the amount of revenue it generates has always, without exception, gone up when they have allocated more officers for enforcement. And that is the news for the week. I'm going to check with the live chat, and we will see how everyone is doing. Yeah, sorry for the chop. Hopefully we got that under control. So yeah, looks like probably not entirely, but hopefully it's better. Thank you for bearing with us. We appreciate it. So tax the churches and eat the rich, and we can. Yeah, I think Titan's probably right. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious, since the debt already exceeds 125% of GDP, precisely what percentage of GDP are they going to consider an acceptable debt? The advantage to this, I mean, I'd actually be for it. It would stop all of this bickering over the debt ceiling and would place a cap based on how much money how much the U.S. is producing in general. That's not a bad way to do it. We're one of the few countries in the world that actually has a debt ceiling. It has the disadvantage of causing these kinds of arguments and putting our credit rating in jeopardy. When we hit it, it's got the advantage of presumably it keeps spending in check. I'm not sure that it's been successful at that. That would take somebody who understands the process more than I. Certainly the spending is astonishingly high, and if they can just continue to raise the debt ceiling when they want. The Republicans aren't without a point. Obviously, we have to have some control over spending. This isn't the way to do it. Threatening to not pay our bills isn't the way you rein in spending, and it's literally a game of chicken with the economy. And it was Mitch McConnell. I don't know if what was it? I think he said, I don't know if the debt ceiling is, or if the debt is a hostage worth shooting, but I know it's one worth taking. They're literally so eager to just see their agenda pass that they will take a gun to the collective heads of everybody in the U.S., including themselves, and say, I'm going to pull the trigger if we don't negotiate future spending. And it's sort of like, yeah, we should talk about future spending, but this is money that's already been spent. So, yeah. My Republicans don't care about spending. I'm not convinced of that, but I agree that they care about it a lot less than they say they do, and whereas the only president in modern history to balance the budget was Bill Clinton, I think they care a great deal about spending when it's for social projects and when it's for democratic, for projects that Democrats would be interested in. What's for the military, well, then, nothing is too much. We have 90% of all the foreign air bases on the planet are held by the U.S. We have 100, and I think it's 164 total foreign air bases. Do we need all those? And every time an Air Force base says, or when the Pentagon says we don't need more, tanks, we don't need more of this or that, Republicans have a tendency, from what I can tell, to get it anyway, usually because somebody has to manufacture them, and Republicans find a way to have it be in their district. So you're not without a point. That's my long-winded way of saying, well, I don't agree with you. I don't disagree with you either. It's called nuance. I can do both at the same time. All right. Any other comments? No, I think we're a little light on comments, which is fine. I wanted to run through this one. It's obvious, again, we're having some technical issues, so I didn't want to delay too much on this here. But thank you all for joining us, and we are going to have Operator Starsky coming up on, well, Commander Lance McMillan will be on overtime on Thursday at 9:30 p.m. and Operator Starsky will be on in time at 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday. We're looking forward to both of those. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you once again for putting up with the technical issues, and come out and check us out on the Discord. We have a couple other streams planned. You can see about that on the Discord if you would like to join us. In the meantime, this has been The Rundown. Thank you all for joining us.